Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Isaac Christopher Luogo. I am excited and delighted. Sometimes I refer to myself as Doctorus. I will explain to my esteemed brother here. The last time I had a video with him, someone told him, "What you didn't Basakana Phillosophy?" I'm not sure whether that's true.
It's true.
So the Mwidi people were excited about you when they saw you on the social media. But we are going to explore some ideologies of life, the philosophy of life in terms of what transforms us and what affects us in terms of day-to-day relations. I find Mr. Basakana, or Honorable Basakana, or Philosopher Basakana for that purpose, as a man who is extremely intelligent, and I use that word on purpose. He's a critical thinker, and I'll remind him of some of his contemporaries, like I was telling about Mahi Warinyawa, but there's another gentleman, I forget the name. When I remember, I'll tell it to you. Dear Jesus. He's a professor also. Yanden. Yeah? Yosh Tanden. Tanden, I think. Yeah. He's Wakere, but and other people, the ones who work with the Center of Critical Thinking and Alternative Analysis, and the likes of Professor Afonadula, and other people who have imparted. But I'm particularly interested in the philosophy of Honorable Basakana because he is not only a politician. Some people know him as a politician, but I think his philosophy goes beyond politics, but also in terms of transcendence, in terms of how to relate with the personalities, in terms of perhaps the army as well, in terms of the civil society. He has exhibited a lot of leadership potential, but also intellectual acumen, as I told you. Those days when we were just beginning to find our levels, he was a guy who was telling me about the likes of Salam Musumba, how he mentored him and mentored her, stuff like that, and other people. So as we interact, we shall be exposing and try to give a genesis in terms of the philosophy of life, and that's the dispensation we're talking about today. So, Honorable, you're welcome. We shall be interfacing with Lusoga, Luganda where appropriate, but also English. And he's very fluent in that, in all those capacities. Basakana would be a gentleman at this point where universities like Harvard, Yale would actually be calling upon him and say, by the way, come and give these lectures. You know, that's what happens. I saw Condoleezza Rice lecturing in one of those universities. And that's what I'm talking about. So we're talking about such people who have capital, intellectual capital, that we need to, get information from before they take leave. And I'm not saying he's taking leave, but that's just a word. So, Honorable, you're welcome, my brother.
Thank you.
Yeah. I was asking you, in light of the professor, the philosophy of life, you made a very important aspect, and you said sometimes God puts those dots on us in terms of commas that kind of interpose or perhaps give us a beacon and say, wait a minute, I am aware of what you want. But what if what God wants for me is not what I want?
Yeah, you see, at our level, we have been premised by the concept, the understanding of a supreme being. Because many things are beyond the understanding of man. And many people have coined the theories, philosophies, but they have been overtaken by time. They have been disproved as more truth tends to be revealed. What people used to think as truth becomes misthinking along the way. Maybe it looked truth over the time, but it was a misthinking along the way. People did not see something, and when it was seen and factored into, then the other thing became extremely wrong. You see? So, my thinking is that I would never want to think minus the shadow of God hanging over me. You get my point. Let me call it a shadow. You can call it even a shade is a shadow of a tree. No matter what you call it. So many times you may not want to say what God has seems to say for you is the best. Okay? But God in his ultimate wisdom and unlimited wisdom. I will borrow from Christianity because I have grown up as a Christian. Even if I have many questions which are unanswered by Christianity as an individual.
Okay.
But I've grown up as
a Christian.
As a Christian, and it may not be easy to run away from Christianity. More so that it shares a lot with African traditional beliefs in terms of religion. As you are aware, God gave us in the Christian theology what you call a free will. You know, God is giving you an escape what? An escape route. God is giving you some alternative. You know, as a loving God, you know, love involves leaving freedom to what? To others. So much so that you can even, you may not even question what other people are going to do with their freedom. They may not use the freedom to mess other people, but they may reserve the freedom to mess themselves. You get my point? I get your point. So God gives a free will. Okay?
Yes.
You may not follow God, but our thinking is that God is always what? Is always right. And like I've told you, why God? Why God? Why factoring in God? As you reach a point where you say, no, what God says to me is not good for me.
Let me ask you, Professor Basakana, and I'm using that word on purpose. Is it something that you have come to terms with now, or is it something you have known at another stage?
It is something I've known at another stage. You know, even as a younger boy in Kamuli boys, okay? Even in the village in Namutumba, many things keep striking people's mind. I've always felt that there is no younger soul. I believe as children are born, souls are waiting where they are being born to keep taking charge of them. Souls don't grow, they are old. Already. They are mature, you know. So it used to dawn upon me. You see it as a younger kid. You now want to craft a car. You know, African children, they give you a toy. You are not satisfied with the toy from the shop. By the evening, an African child would have dismantled the toy and thrown it away. Tomorrow morning, he will be trying to craft his own what? His own toy. From local raw materials. Right. We used to do those things. But it used to dawn on me. If this toy here I've made is not an accident, it is a craft of some what? Some mind. It is a craft of some what? Some hand. How about the trees I see, the birds of the air, who made them? Okay. So by the time we would run to the Sunday school at Kamuli Boys, together with the Kamuli girls and that road Christian what? The Church of Uganda in Kamuli, we were already having a concept of a lot of mystery. And then the church told us what you see as mystery is the power of what? God. Is the power of God. So nonetheless, yes, as human beings, people say there are two things, which is true. There is the body and the what? And the flesh. Okay? Like Lubogo, your dad passed on. But many times you think he did pass on. Part of him did not die like the what? Like the human body. That undying part of your father keeps influencing you. You even keep making reference. Huh? You even at times will say, I think, let me just do it like my father. He keeps informing you, why don't you try this? Okay? So there is that human and fleshly part of us where you may disagree with God. Many times I've listened to Christians saying, the way that man is handling us, I'm a good Christian, but let me tell you, tomorrow morning as I go back to work, I'm leaving my Christianity in the cupboard, handle him first, then that one I will come and
later.
Whether it is repentance or anything, I will do it later. So, what if God, you think what he has done for you, he thinks for you, or what they are advising you from scripture is not good for you? God gave us the free will to try out our thinking. God, we have always tried.
Now, Honorable Basakana, in asking that question, I'm trying to see what is the philosophy of Basakana. What has informed Basakana in terms of today?
So, of course, then the way we are informed depends on a number of things. That is at the level of spiritual induction. You know, people induce a theology to you as a younger person. But there is also another side. The unspeaking things of the world, made by God or of the world, whatever you choose to call them, they speak to us. You get me? What am I saying? The concrete material conditions under which you live. You go to a school, people teach you, talk to you, they have certain ways of life, they have certain ways of thinking, norms, manners, everything. Many of those things affect and shape us.
Okay.
Like, whoever everybody is, whatever the thinking of every person is, the question you should never fail to ask is, where did he grow?
Okay. What
to which schools did he go?
Right. How was he mentored?
Oh, it is equally important. To which schools did he go is equally important. That man never went to school.
I know.
Even.
I know.
Or it might even be more important to say schools saw him as a failure.
Now, take a walk at Yao.
And he became self-made in the world of
Honorable Basakana,
material interaction.
Basing on that culture that informs the habits and tenets of individuals, and I'm coming to a Daisawa now, I'm going to make your head pain. Would you want to argue and say some of the political philosophers of the nation that we have today, some of what their behaviors and antecedents are simply a result of how they were nurtured? To give an example, your friend Yoweri Kaguta Museveni.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And you know, those antecedents come right from home, from village, from the culture. You know, it's not even the school you went to. It is even important to say, is that man a Musoga, a Munyankole, an Indian? Even India is big. Okay? Somebody told me there are over 300 tribes and languages in China. You get me? So even the part of China in which you grew and you come from is very what? Important. Very important. And the earliest forms of interaction die hard in nurturing a man. If somebody grew, like you see Museveni, Museveni is struggling to mold Uganda like a product of Ankole. And you don't blame him. Even when he talks, he thinks the best proverbs are not those of the Bible.
Absolutely.
They are those in the what? Of Ankole. Putting the Jewish proverbs aside in the Bible, Museveni thinks even the Basoga proverbs are not the what? The best. And I would not want to blame him. He is being himself.
Right.
And it's good and important to be yourself.
Right.
And part of the problem, some of us, and why we fell out with Mr. Museveni is that we are ourselves.
Now, take our cut here. Wouldn't you think that there is a problem if we have now agreed in terms of the philosophy of life that our cultures or wherever we are bred kind of informs what we are?
Exactly.
Now we are talking about a country like Uganda, which was an amalgamation of different constituents.
I get you.
We have the Basoga,
indigenous people. Let's call them the indigenous nations.
Yes, and then we are bundled together because of colonialists.
And bundled together. Worse still, there is a new influence coming. We are not bundled together on our own terms.
Absolutely.
But we are bundled together on other people's terms. And which in essence are designed to negate
actually our own identity.
Our own identity, and all that goes with it.
Very good. On the basis of that, would you think that Uganda is on the right track or on the wrong track politically?
Oh, certainly, my brother, Uganda is on the wrong track politically.
Why?
Why? Because the politics of this country derives its genesis from the creation of Uganda with the negation of the indigenous content of what the Ugandan people are. The Uganda we have did not imagine that being a Munyankole makes sense. It never imagined that being a Musoge Karamojongo makes what? Sense. At the core of the Uganda we have, the Rongo Uganda we have, there was a thinking that, guys, listen to us. Development is not a sense of self-renewal from within. You as a qualitative improvement of a Munyankole based on who he is. Okay? And even when new ideas come to Ankole or to Busoga, it is the Busoga culture which says this is irrelevant, this is consumable. That's now development from within. The new neo-colonial setting of the British gave us a wrong thinking. That development is the struggle to be like somebody else,
right?
Which you can never be.
You can never be.
Lubogo, you have studied the British common law.
Right.
You know you can write English better and faster than Lusoga. That one will never make you English.
Absolutely.
It will never make you be accepted among the English people.
Absolutely.
Because the core of you is foreign. As people see the British side of you who is not British, they want to know, what way are you?
Absolutely. I was listening to Professor Matanda, who told me about a week ago. There is a lady who came from Shona. Shona should be South Africa.
Shona is the Shona and the Bere is around South Africa there.
And in their university,
the Shona Matabele around Mozambique.
Yes, she came.
No, Zimbabwe.
She came to talk about poetry, Shona poetry, and the auditorium was actually full by these individuals. And I got to understand. So this professor was telling me that, look, instead of concentrating a lot on writing from a Western perspective, you would rather write from an African perspective, because then you will have something to offer to the community. Because there you are actually blessed. If you want
a minute.
Yes.
You know, living an entire life, writing and acting from the European perspective, it is a struggle to live a life of pretense, which is not tenable.
Right.
It is hollow.
Right.
In itself.
Right. Right.
It doesn't grow you.
Right.
It doesn't anchor your nation.
Right.
As a firm base upon which future generations will stand to score higher and higher.
What export does Basakana, coming from Kamuli or wherever, have in light of the philosophy to the greater world?
To the greater world. The export I would have is new energies, research, giving a new generation of knowledge, not generation like from one group of people old to young, but generation like generating electricity.
Right.
Generating new knowledge,
right,
and information.
Right.
First, in people realizing who they are. For instance, I will give you a simple example. Generating new knowledge whereby some people have to unlearn in order to relearn.
Like Alvin's daughter said, yes.
You know?
Yes.
We have to discover who we are before we can offer something.
Absolutely.
But my export is I have discovered who I am. Okay? My main question is not who are Nigerians. I know this thing you call Nigeria to me is extremely meaningless. It's the way they molded those people to think that development is the struggle to be like somebody else. It's like instead of coming to give Shona poetry, you are coming to imitate Shakespeare.
Right.
You can't imitate Shakespeare better than
them. Absolutely.
It is them. You are only trying to imitate, but it is what? It is them. So between me and you, we need to rediscover a new sense of Pan-Africanism, which is not based on the colonial states.
As an African philosopher, Honorable Basakana,
but which is based on indigenous nations.
Where did you lose the debate that you had? Because there was a time when you and a few of your colleagues, and I remember you impressed it upon me at a certain time, had started this in Nsaka University, if you remember. Something of the sort.
Okay.
What happened? Because I thought that was
Nsaka
originated.
Nsaka.
Yes.
Nsaka was Professor Mugadu. I didn't think deep about it, but I knew that as by then a leader of a local government, I wanted to support an upcoming university here. I'm not saying Nsaka was negative, but I wasn't critical on the syllabus. I wasn't critical on the curriculum of Nsaka University. Because you see, the biggest trap in which we have fallen, when people say we are developing, there is a national curriculum development center in Uganda, the British come to design it.
I know.
You get me? That we are working a new syllabus.
And they tell you who is accredited and who is not accredited.
That we are making a new syllabus for O level. We are changing it to A level. I happen to be a chairperson of a board of governors of some secondary school. I have interfaced with UNEB. I have interfaced with the Belgian Development Agency through a local NGO called Enabel on issues relating school improvement plans and so on and so forth. I am telling you, this thing they are calling a new syllabus is moving from chaos to what? To chaos.
Okay.
It is even worse.
Why? Like, why is that so?
Now, why do you call people into the church when the preacher doesn't know anything about the faith you want to preach to them?
Absolutely.
Teachers are ignorant.
Many of them are
about
this.
You're
right. You're very true.
You get me?
Yeah. Even when they were trained, they said we
somebody is saying the new syllabus has begun at A level. No book, no anything, no one. People are experimenting with this generation. And I'm telling you, the white man who manages these neo-colonial leaders here is successfully managing to destroy us, even on ability to imitate.
Wow. Wow.
As if imitation and struggling to be like him is not a dead struggle, a pilgrimage to nowhere. He is even making sure that we don't even have a pilgrimage to nowhere. We are stuck in the middle of nowhere.
Professor Basakana, what is your comment on the government coming up and said we are now going to take the liberty of admitting and even organizing university entrance, even in private universities?
Now, before I come to that,
yes,
let me complete on this issue of what export do we have. You know? One thing we want to, by the way, it's not even what export do we have. What do we have to produce in terms of ideas first for local consumption?
Right.
Because you can't export when you are hungry.
True.
Africa is intellectually hungry. Everything in Africa is wrong. You know, you can't talk about Pan-Africanism of Uganda, of Kenya, of what. That's nonsense. What makes you African is not being in Nigeria. Even Nigerians, when you say I'm a Nigerian, they will say, are you really Nigerian? Let me use the example here. When you say you want a passport, I'm Ugandan, they say, where do you come from?
Right.
Now they tend to realize, how do they redefine themselves? Which part of Uganda do you come from? Because now they know. True. Uganda is meaningless, it can't define you. You say you come from Busia. Then they say, hello, Egesa, you come. Hello, what is your name? Wanyama. Otie. Mulibalai, will you? Which part of Busia do you come from? I come from Masaba. The other man now tunes to what is Africa. What he has, the litmus he has to test that this man is African and Ugandan.
I know.
Oh, an African from this part of Uganda. Uganda can't define him. It is Samia which will define him. Right. It's being a Musoga. This, they preach a lot about our indigenous nation is as tribalism. But when you want a passport, they say which tribe do you come from? And perhaps why are they being tribal when they are issuing a document where the president wants to give you protection?
Let me ask you a question in light of that particular point. So do you agree that the question of Banyarwanda becomes a very serious problem in Uganda today, in light of the fact that they are now having nowhere to...
Because the question is, whereas I would love the Banyarwanda, and I would many times say, 13 of my children, 9 have been circled by Banyarwanda. I always say that to show you that I have no problem with Rwandese at all. Because, and I say that because being a Mnyarwanda and being called a Mnyarwanda, for no good reason, but for the stupid reason, is very sensitive in this one, in this country. Because some Banyarwanda don't want to be called the what?
Banyarwanda.
For the stupid reasons.
Right.
Of struggling. They are not only struggling to be like a European, but they are also struggling to be like a Muganda.
Right.
It makes me no meaning. They are Rwandese and they should be proud of being what?
Rwandese.
Being Rwandese. You get me? Now, I was talking of the true Pan-Africanism is not between Uganda and Nigeria. The true Pan-Africanism is the connectivity and the love between the Basoga and the Yoruba. It is between the Shona and the Asante Hene. In what? In Ghana. You get my point? It is between the Kikuyu and the Chaga of Tanzania. You get me? So when people are preaching that this is the Pan-African movement in Africa, it's full of rubbish. When you talk about the Chaga, the Basoga, the Samia, they say that is tribalism. These fools don't know that the real bricks, fired bricks, you know, the bricks fired by God, the bricks tested over generations to build the Pan-African continent, a spirit of Africans, a spirit of unity, togetherness, which unity presumes that there must be units to bring what? Together. Is about the Kikuyu, the Basoga, the Yoruba. This nonsense of Uganda is hopeless.
Let me pause the
like
question.
As you pause, yes. Let me also add this.
Please add.
I feel a lot of pain when the people in Busoga are calling upon Mr. Museveni, who is not an expert on anything in Busoga. Nti Muzayi tuyambe tulibubi. What has an Ankole herdsman got to do in Busoga? He's an expert on what? I am waiting for him to pregnant the Ankole with ideas for local consumption. He exports some to the export you talked about. Before we export to the Yoruba and to Yoruba. The ideas and the outcomes of our good what? Ideas.
Let me ask you a question also.
But
yes, please
go back to the other thing of schools first.
Yes.
I didn't want to.
Okay. Because you brought
okay, whichever way you want first. Either what you are going to ask or the other way.
Because you brought in so many interesting things, and you see the problem is when you're talking to Basakana, he's an encyclopedia of knowledge. And that's why I am seeking him out here from his peaceful place to have an interaction so that we can have an interesting discussion in terms of the future. But also
let me throw this to you.
Please do.
People struggling that the Banyarwanda are a tribe in Uganda. Which territory here is called the Rwanda? Like there is Busoga. There is, I know the people of Kisoro are basically Banyarwanda. So if you want to call Banyarwanda,
you see, but
part of Uganda, then don't call that place Kisoro.
Their argument is coming from this point.
Call it Rwanda.
Their argument is coming from this point, from the formation of the Constitution, 1995 Constitution, which gazetted particular tribes.
Listen to me.
Yes.
The Constitution being authored by who?
By you, Constitution.
Fuck us Europeans. with their neo-colonial what?
No, 1995 constitution. I'm talking about 1995 constitution.
But 1995, this country was still revolving deeper in the neo-colonial nexus. By the way, if Europeans are to look for their neo-colonial cadres in Africa today, the best could be the regime in Uganda. So what are you talking about 1995?
So the point I'm trying to present is that by the 1928,
even the elements which seemed African, which seemed like respecting people's human rights, have been removed out. People have a right to choose their own leaders.
Okay, even before you make these points, you seem to be very passionate about these ideas.
So many things that make people have freedom.
What, in your opinion, would you argue as a letdown by this nation philosophically in terms of what philosophy would inform the nation now, not Basakana as an entity?
Okay. Of course, the letdown in terms of philosophy is that, you see, I will look at European education like a gun. You get me? I can arm you to go and kill people in this village and terrorize them. But once you have a brain, you may use the same what? Gun to terrorize the one who armed you.
Sure.
So the so-called African intellectuals were like people going to Mombasa. Then they realize they are lost, they are in Kabali. But they are weak in thinking and in resolve. When people say we are lost, we have got the wrong way. Mombasa is this way. We are going to Kigali. They say, but turning back, my friend, Mombasa is now very what? Far. It is far. But why do you want to stick on a journey of being lost to Kigali? Because ideally, all you are looking for, all you want, and all that belongs to you is in Mombasa. That's why you are planned the journey to what? To Mombasa.
Right.
So, we need to have a strong resolve. Where we have failed our people, where we lost it all, is where the African so-called intellectual group, even if it is colloquially made in Europe, we are not so stupid. We should rethink ourselves and say, no, there should be no Uganda without respect for Busoga. There should be no South Africa without respect for the Zulu. If South Africa must be there, it must be informed by the Zulu philosophy and understanding of the world and the type of South Africa the Zulu want to be. Not a South Africa which is saying there is a type of Zululand I want to be, informed by Europe.
Are you echoing, because I see you where you are coming from, but I want to be certain. Are you echoing the words of some individual, and I know you're very blunt, I'm sure you probably mentioned that individual, who said there is an individual who has messed up with the politics of Busoga as an entity?
Primarily, I'm not going to look at individuals messing up the politics of what? Of Busoga. I will take an intellectual harvest crop of the Busoga. Like I told you, what informs a man in his philosophy, world outlook, and at times, you know, crafting ideas that impact on the wider society. I told you the schools you went to, the churches you went to, the site you green, not limited to going to school, but even some people become what they are because they were called failures in schools.
Right.
Some people are what they are because the white man had no chance to mismanage their brains. They stayed in the traditional, in the traditional society completely. You get my point. So I would want to say that I am not going to blame an individual, but all of those nice people who fell out of school yet they were genius and continue to prosper at the level of ideas. The genius who never went to the European school, who were lucky not to go to the European school, okay? And therefore, their brains were never adulterated and ideas. Then I'm saying, those are adulterous, mislearned people who need to unlearn and relearn, like you and what? And me. We are collectively to blame for what Busoga is today. People sit and say, Mr. Museveni yatusubiza ekyuma kyaki kya sukali. Forget about what the crop of sugar can bring and may not bring. But supposing the Basoga said it is good and you have chosen to grow sugar cane all over, why would we need before Mr. Museveni to bring ekyuma kya sukali? First of all, there is some misconnect in our thinking and brains. We have the money to pull together. When we pull money and steal it in a cooperative, who else are we to blame? Why did our forefathers steal money in the what? In the cooperative, and they prospered? You get my point?
Get your point.
So I don't want to blame an individual from elsewhere. By the way, when individuals find communities which have chosen to play the fool,
they will continue that way.
They will also play on your gold and take it away. People are talking of rare metals in Ibugwe. No Musoga can afford to go to radio and say this is what is in Ibugwe, this is what we want. Nobody can dare. Because we have failed in unity as a people. We have failed to define an agenda on what we want. We have chosen that the neo-colonial agents in Kampala have made sub-contracts with the sub-agents in Busoga.
I know.
Okay? The others are robbing on behalf of the white what? Man. These are robbing on behalf of the cohorts in what? In Kampala. And then there we are. And worse still, and 40 years are not few. Many of these younger people who were born when we came from the bush, they are finished people. They are finished what? People.
Why is that so?
They are finished in a sense that to them, not thinking for yourself, being used is the corrective of life, according to them. You get me? Struggling to be a to get a contract, to help the contractor in Kampala, the neo-colonialist, who is helping the white man to do what? To steal from where? From here. They think it's noble. I've always told my colleagues, you think Nupu is taking this country anyway?
Tell me.
The raw material in which NRM was made is the same raw material in which Nupu was what? Made.
Why is that so?
The NRM philosophy is the Nupu what? Struggling to be a white man's caricature here.
I see.
Yes, where is Bobby Wine running all the time?
Europe.
You think Europe is interested in Bobby Wine or they have interests here?
I see your point.
If they made Bobby Wine president, do they make him president on his own terms? Or because of there are three things. They must exploit, they must oppress, they must rule you by proxy. And you know, to exploit people and to rule them when you are not supposed to rule them, you must oppress them.
Right.
So Bobby Wine, like Museveni, must agree to oppress people here, even to, because the population has grown, their demands are higher. He must be a better oppressor to augur well in the eyes of the what? The Europeans.
So who is the better devil, if I may use that word loosely, between the two? Mr. Museveni and Bobby Wine.
You see, the Europeans know that they are generational devils. They know that they are generational what? Devils. When people get tired of you, like hate it or love it, people are tired of Mr. Museveni.
Serious?
Yeah, because you see, they should be tired of the white man, but they think Museveni is the what? Is the problem. But Museveni is the lesser problem because of his link to the white man. But to the short-sighted people here, the younger generation, which is not seeing beyond their noses, Museveni is the what? Is the problem. They think Bobby Wine is what? A solution. But to the Europeans, they are very busy saying this old guard is always sleeping on the job. He is not oppressing the people well.
Let's get
let's get a young one and warn him that the moment you sleep, you lose your job. He has an age advantage to the benefit of the Europeans. They open their eyes. I will give you a simple example.
Please do.
Some young people in Nupu, who were not patient. When they saw when NRM treated them the other time, they said, but are we getting a chance at the resources? They are not talking of the resources of the country, the crumbs which the white man leaves after slaughtering and dividing the cake here. The crumbs he leaves. Some have been impatient. They have even accused the Bobby Wine. You get 3 billion, how many billions they give in the parliament. All of those are designed by Europeans. You think Mr. Museveni would have loved the opposition to get any money from government? No. It's European power. This is Western democracy. Every party represented must get some money. Because they know you are going to become obsolete. So they must keep enticing the others around the what? The corner. Because it is no longer tenable to bring white men to be chiefs here, to be secondary school teachers, and so on and what? So some younger men have been impatient. Bobby Wine or Kulia, when they reach parliament, they are divided. Like now they are shouting at the unknown, it is not even a bribe. The sin of 100 million.
Yes.
The word bribe to me is lesser. The sin of 100 million. You think how many new people took it? The majority.
I know.
So that's why I'm telling you this issue of the devil. You know the devil, you don't know. Those are irrelevant. These guys are the same. And there are people who will not make a good devils like a moon. Why? People will say, this man is good-hearted. He's too African.
That is Mugisha mode.
Yeah, he's too African.
Yes.
You know? Because when you are too African, it means you love the human rights of the African people. If you are too African, you look at the way the Africans are living, you want to cry. You look at what the European has left for you and what he has taken. So no white man can choose Muntu to be a leader here.
Really?
No. You must be thuggish. That's number 1. 2. You must look greedy.
So those are qualifications for presidential candidate?
Yes, and usually those qualifications, white men look at people who are really, like now one of the best men the whites can use is Besige.
Why? I thought Besige was...
You know when somebody is about to give up, he could be a sacrificial lamb. There are those other things. That's another area. But when they see somebody, like now if the white men put pressure to bring the Besige out of prison, they control these nations, play their game to make him president. He can be worse than Museveni 1 million times.
Why?
So the condition is they will put on him is they are worse, take it or leave it. But then the man might say, you know, one time Besige also used to complain. This is not my struggle. The white man will squeeze Besige until it becomes his struggle. And not the struggle of the what?
Of the people.
The white man wants in power people in their own struggles, not in the struggle of the what?
But are you saying that's a general African problem, or you think it's isolated? I would give an example.
No.
Yes.
You see, it is general, even if it meanders with a bit of how would I call it? With a bit of uniqueness from one area to another, one country to another, because the history of resistance may not necessarily be the same. The strength and the giving in of the indigenous African nations level, we are all defeated. But there are people who get defeated with nothing. There are those who wisely say, let's compromise for now so that part of us remain for the future reference and to replan.
Right.
So, but really those degrees are irrelevant. The white man knows those degrees are all beyond the tipping point.
I have always had a problem, philosopher Basakana, with an argument proponed by, and this is a tricky issue, by Nelson Mandela. There are those who argue, if you listen to people like Julius Malema and other people who argue that Nelson Mandela did not actually spend the 27 years in prison. And in fact, the argument was saying that even a person who comes out of prison after 27 years, that white man would not just give you power of a sudden, like you're trying to say, unless there are strings that attached. In fact, they argue and say that even after South Africa assumed the so-called independence, the white man continued controlling the economy of the country. He gave an example, talk about, is it Zimbabwe? Zimbabwe and either Lesotho or Botswana, where 70%, actually, I think Botswana, 70% of Germans actually do control the land. Even in Zimbabwe, even in South Africa, the majority of that land is actually owned. So when people like Donald Trump come up and begin slashing sanctions on South Africa, the Malemas come up. But also, although the sitting president Ramaphosa, he was also argued as one of those who has actually benefited a lot as being a stooge of the white man. But then there are other exemplary individuals, like the new forces. Remember, is it the one of what? Of the Tory guy? Yeah? One of those Western African countries, where he came in and stood and said, even ECOWAS and those African nations tried to overthrow him at a certain time, but he stood his ground, and now people are seeing that this is the true reason as to what Africanism would actually entail.
This little boy in Burkina Faso.
Yes, in Burkina Faso. Don't you think we have those elements, in spite of these other individuals that you're pointing out and say, okay, this is a rotten apple, this is a rotten apple? Don't you think Africa still has hope?
You see, let me tell you.
Tell me.
First of all, Malema believe in Bandera. But I don't find Malema a very intelligent guy. I don't find him very what?
Intelligent.
First of all, if you want to be a leader, the way you package yourself matters.
Right.
Leaders don't become leaders because of their ability to physically turn tables, and they become leaders because of their abilities to drive parliaments, communities, and conferences by the power of their ideas. You know, many people knew they could hang around Mandela and drive him in a given direction. Mandela may have had his own weaknesses, because if colonialism was so heinous and a difficult thing to dismantle here in Uganda, in Kenya, in Tanzania, how about in Tanzania, where there was apartheid?
In South Africa.
In South Africa, rather, where there was apartheid. You get me? The situation was even more complicated. Now, if the army here keeps running to buy guns out, even where buying, you could say you may have a choice. The choices are very what? Limited, and at times you have to answer where you have bought item X from destination Y. How about South Africa, which was manufacturing its own what? Arms. South Africa was not an ordinary African what? Country in terms of the economy.
True.
The levels of science and what?
True.
Technology. But the Malemas of this world came with a narrow thinking that just brush away the white what? The white man, and let the Africans take a charge. Already apartheid had done Africa this service. For over a century, Africans were not given opportunity to build alternative leadership. You get my point? The way the nation was being what? Built. Africans were not part of the technological base of South what? Of South Africa.
True.
You get my point? You would have, you know, even if you gave them the country wholesale, if the apartheid elements withdrew and said, Europeans have gone back to Australia, to Canada, to where South Africa is there. No toilet would be running in South Africa.
Okay.
Same problem is with Libya.
Okay.
Take you on another note.
Right.
Dictators like Gaddafi, whom people praise over nothing. You know? Gaddafi could have been anti-European.
But Pan-African.
But he could have not Pan-Africanist at all.
Really?
Gaddafi wanted to be an independent European from Europeans.
Okay.
He was like omwana yazawa nagenda nabirya nakoma abazungu ne bagamba, this time we are not the biblical father. We are going to do what? We are going to punish you. But what this service did the dictators like Gaddafi do to the people of Libya? That criminal denied growth of alternative leadership in what? In Libya.
Right.
Be it within the context of Islam and Arabism.
Okay.
Not even in the context of neocolonialism, because neocolonialism can give aspirin measures. Okay? Like Museveni came here as aspirin, nebalekera okubba enkoko okunyaga obusente ku road block, but can aspirin cure a problem?
No.
At the end of the day, are you sure we will go with the money to Kampala? And when they see it, they will not steal it. People have been gunned down in their shops.
Right.
Like the recent example in Bowen.
Right.
Where is the good government which came up?
Right.
Those are aspirin measures.
Right.
So Gaddafi never gave people a chance to give even the aspirin alternative leadership.
Okay.
Which would help for somewhat, for some time. So when the criminal was plugged out by his mentors and creators, all of those coups people used to make against Arabs, Europeans were involved. Now, Gaddafi goes, there is no alternative leadership. He has left a criminal son there. His stupid sons would go talking the way they want, you know, as if it was a dynasty. Everybody had given up saying, they don't what they would do with their thing. Maybe when the Gaddafi dies, Islam will come in to manage their confusion. We will be on lookers.
Is there a symbol?
That did not happen.
Do you see a symbolism in light of Uganda? Let's contextualize that in terms of Uganda.
Don't talk about Uganda. That is the way Africans are.
I see.
Look at the nonsense in Tanzania. If that woman succeeds in doing her nonsense in Tanzania, next Kisanja you hear that her son is standing.
Really? What are the solutions, Honorable Basakana? You seem to be looking at a nation that has lost. I mean,
to me, no, it is not all lost. But I want to tell you, you asked me a question that where did we lose it all?
Right.
Where we lost it all is when the intellectual group which realized that, no, the white man is a thief, he's an oppressor, he's everything bad. You know, some people reached a point and even ask themselves that, wait, is there anything good in the Bible?
I know.
Somebody said, maybe. Then another one said, do you think if there was anything good in the Bible, would the European have given it to us? Because they could not see anything good with the European.
I know.
Whatever was preached in the Bible was the opposite of the of the European.
I know. I see your point.
You get my point. So where did we lose it all? When independence struggles began in Africa, the Lumumbas, the Nkurumas, you know, a bit of Milton Obote as they tried to peep through the Kamori of the struggles of the Kenyatas in what? In Kenya, the Kakonges here, Nadiope and others. Africans had woken up to say, no, enough is enough. This is our territory. This is our gift from God. And it must be used to the benefit of Africans. Where we lost it all is when those groups settled for less.
I see. Where we took mirrors.
How did we settle for less? Initially, people fought for independence, but they settled for neo-colonialism. They settled for that's where we lost it. Right. Now, when you look at what the hundreds of years of neocolonialism in Latin America, in India, Japan, in China, the colonial experience of many centuries, the ravaging of Africa through slavery, you look at all of that happened. Africans had said no, and they wanted to struggle for independence. But for some reason, the white man knew he would never win a war here. Right. So he came into small negotiations. Like you can see, only very poor nations like Portugal and Spain stuck to the colonies longer because they were too poor. They could not afford to give up the Minyago.
Right.
Yeah. And Africans there were forced to go into guerrilla warfare, wars of that region, like in Mozambique, in Angola, and so on and so forth. But even at a later time, people went into negotiations.
Right.
Portugal gives independence to Angola, they give independence to Mozambique. But these guys also negotiated for less. I was thinking about the president of Angola after Agostino Neto. I don't know why the name has jumped out of my head. This one with a Rogo girl, a Rogo daughter. This president has been a bit hard on them. No, Agostino Neto, Eduardo dos Santos. These guys also became hopeless and criminals and thieves. They admired the way the neo-colonial presidency operating, and they dumped their hard battles with the what? With the Europeans, and they were also disadvantaged because much of Africa was neo-colonial, so they could not really operate as isolated groups.
Right.
Pan-Africanism, the white man organized them and directed them into the Pan-Africanism of Uganda, Kenya, Tanzania. That's why when people saw the analysis of Nkuruma's world outlook and Lumumba, it was in a way negating Ghana as a basis for Pan-Africanism. It was going deeper into the indigenous nation states.
Right.
And then the Muzungu knew once they retuned these people to go to where they got lost and discovered, never since era, to rediscover themselves. Where the new Pan-Africanism would mean Yoruba, linking with the Asante, the Basoga, the Kikuyu. We are finished. Those were eliminated.
Okay.
So at the end of it all,
yes,
when the good leaders were eliminated, neocolonialism has expanded in years, in months, in hours, in minutes, in seconds. The European has a wide experience of operation, but operation is not tenable.
Right.
You can see how Trump is struggling to keep American hegemony on what? On top.
Right.
You saw people struggled and colonialism was not tenable.
Right.
Neo-colonialism is also not tenable.
Right.
Save for these South African leaders.
Right.
The problem is big. How do we recapture our past? You get me? When people look at the size of the problem, of saying, you know, let's rework our indigenous Pan-Africanism, create a unity of the Kikuyu and the Basoga and the Asante and the Zulu and the what? To Sinzire. Of course, these little African governments, which are gatekeepers of the white man, cannot allow. But all South Africans are not murderers. We don't believe in stupid things like guerrilla wars. But to me, I think the job is big, but the battle is not lost.
Okay. What is the future? What light is the future?
We can preach a recapture of the glory of the indigenous African
How do you
nation.
do that?
How do we do that? How do we do that? First of all, we must retrace our history. Write it. Rewrite it because it was written by other people.
Yes.
Show our younger generation that there is what we are, and if we stood in our bases and positions of who we are, we can progress.
Okay.
You get my point?
Is that an aspect of, in terms of individual?
No, it's not individual, but it begins with the individual.
Okay.
It's not individual, but it begins with what?
The
The individual. But also, we must know that where neocolonialism has brought us, the emancipation of Africa can't be political. Politics is parochial and short term.
Okay.
The issues we need to fix are sociological.
Absolutely.
The issue we need to fix are sociological. Our understanding of the political economy of our indigenous nations is important. To appreciate that God in his unlimited wisdom created every people with enough average people to do the work, with enough fools to bother that community, but also with enough genius to fire up those communities to higher levels of development.
Right.
And let everybody enjoy. Foolish, average, or genius.
Okay, very good. I am very excited about that philosophy, because in actually we're talking about the philosophy of life that informs.
And let me tell you.
Tell us, yes.
I can't think for the Yoruba.
Sure.
I can't think for the Kikuyu.
Sure.
Much of the wisdom of the Kikuyu is coded and hidden by their great-great-grandfathers in the Kikuyu language.
Right.
No word is meaningless.
Right.
Every word has secrets of the Kikuyu community.
Right.
If you wait unlocking them, people might say, hey, why are we struggling to reinvent the wheel? The thing is where?
Already
Is here. You have a degree in British common law. Let's unlock Busoga. There must be Busoga common law. Where is it and who is bothering to write it? Our struggle is sociological. You can concentrate on research and writing Busoga common law. Common law. A time will come when people will get the books of Busoga common law,
right,
and the books of the English common law,
right,
and then people will say, gentlemen, you are a lion. How do people give you grass and you leave meat?
I know, I agree with you.
How is the lion going to be comfortable with grass?
I agree. At my PhD, my supervisors began by telling me to use the Harvard referencing. Then at a certain time, they went to a scholar, which is a British, Oxford. Now they are now telling us to use pulp, which is South Africa. I was bothered a little bit. I said, now why are these different? Now I begin to understand where they are coming from. And yet they actually...
Exactly. And you know, one of the issues I used to have a problem with, like I said, if people, who you are depends on who taught you. Much of who I am, my thinking and so on, I had a lot of inspiration from Professor Muhammad Mamdani. But what inspired me from Muhammad Mamdani is not Karl Marx and his things. Is not Edmund Burke and his things in Britain. Is not Jean-Jacques Rousseau and his thing in France. What inspired me, when he was teaching us, he let us know one thing, that all those people tried to be themselves.
Okay.
Who are you?
Okay.
I hated the nonsense in Makerere. I got an upper class degree. I was not good at reading the white man's books. I found them useless. But I got an upper class degree. You know, I would sit and say, this is who we are. Why are you telling me to quote Marx? Why don't you state a problem here? And you tell me to consult the African community and wisdom.
Wow, that's beautiful. Yeah.
I was an independent thinker at the university. I hated this business of regurgitating Karl Marx, Edmund Burke, Jean-Jacques Rousseau. You know, Herbert Spencer said this. Aristotle. Supposing we never got anything from Aristotle.
True.
Had our brains been switched off. And even when I would answer the assignments of those professors, I knew one thing. We were lucky. We were not in this internet thing. I would even at times create a book and a title. Quote at Aero, EBD, what not, but when the ideas are mine,
yes,
I get good overflow, good use to ask me, I want to see this book. It must be a good one. I say, no, I left it in the library. Did you get it? I go back and tell him, they have removed the book. And when I asked the librarian who took it, he said, you know, some of the boys are stealing books from where? From here. But when the book is not there, it is my original thinking.
Right.
And Ogutu used to tell me, this is a very good essay, Hannington. He was the first man to ask me a question, where were you at A level? During the tutorial.
Yes.
So, I can imagine getting a PhD but struggling to think in the foot. You know, that's neo-colonizing the minds of people. At a PhD level, people should be writing a thesis to free the mind of the African people.
Absolutely.
You know? Why would the European declare me a professor? I mean, if I'm not a professor in Europe, but I'm a professor in my village, my villagers know why they call me what? A professor. And I didn't become a professor to your benefit anyway.
The value added in terms of the community.
I become a professor to the benefit of my what? But because people don't only mine minerals in the ground, the mining area, the white man is mining freely with no contracts, no anything cheaply. Is the brains of the African people.
In conclusion, because our video has been long, what is your takeaway? If someone asked you and said, who is Basakana, in one word?
Who is Basakana? You see, who is Basakana and what is Basakana? These are two different things.
True.
Who is Basakana is simple. One, I grew up in a middle class family of Basakana. My father was an intellectual of the neo-colonial and colonial order. He studied, he was a bright guy in his school days. He studied on scholarships. He leaves Basakana College Muiri in 1946, rather 1949, having joined 46. He finishes, goes and studies a medical course in Malago.
Let me ask you a question before you continue. As a professor asked another, and when he asked him, tell me about your father, and then he began telling him, tell me what we don't know, what the world doesn't know about your father that informed you. That's what I want.
Exactly. That's one thing I want to tell you is that, first of all, many of our colleagues at our level came from very peasant families.
Okay.
There are certainly little privileges of exposure they never had. There is an inspiration they never had. So my dad goes to Malago. After studying in Malago, a white doctor mistreats him. He leaves the job very what? Very early. He goes and takes on, he wanted to become a pilot. Pioneer black pilot. And they said his sight was not good, but they gave him another ground control course. They did ground control, weather focusing and so on. A European abused him badly for coming late. His mother had been what? Ill. But remember, he had studied some medicine in Malago. So he had kept home to care for the mother. The white man backed at him. He simply turned. His mode of transport then, his V8 was a bicycle. He just rode it back home. The Muzungu didn't have an alternative. He rode his BSA, twin-body motorcycle, up to the village. He wanted to know where my father was. They took him to the garden. He called him. My father did not look at him. He said to date he never knew. By the time he died, he never knew even how the Muzungu dressed when he looked for him in the village. Then he looked for a course which would take him back to African people. They had inaugurated the East African School of Cooperatives in Kabete, Kenya. They were pioneer graduates there. Then they got the best candidate from Uganda, Kenya, Tanzania, and sent them to the University of Saskatchewan in Western Nova Scotia, the district of Antigonish in Canada. He went there and studied economics and other things. Then they came back here to build the cooperative movement in Uganda as the technical groups. And you know how there was a strong spirit of liberation among the area cooperators. Never mind that the colonial governments of Milton Obote sat on the cooperatives. They never allowed the cooperatives to add value and export. They said bring here in the elite marketing board, bring here in the... Never mind that the colonialists of today, the neo-colonialists, are becoming the coffee marketing board, themselves the elite marketing board. The situation has worsened. No, not even the neo-colonial government on behalf of the people. Bad enough, but these are neo-colonial agents of their own behalf to hell with the what? The people. So I grew up with a strong spirit of resentment. My father taught me how to resent and resist what was bad.
I see.
I am a character of resistance.
Did that inform your joining the NRM?
Forget about joining the NRM first. When I left P7, I was taken to Masaba Secondary School. There were a lot of injustices there in the school. Headmaster comes, you see, he's lying and nobody can bear him. I dared the headmaster. He was a Samia man called Oguti Bichach. I dared him badly, and he said, I have expelled you. Suspension indefinitely. I told him, you can bring your children here. I'm not coming back. I got my boxes and came home. But my dad also said, what you have studied is enough, because those things don't help. That is my dad. I went to Canada, where I'm back to the village, because Africa is not well.
I know.
He said, you look after cows. A friend of my dad, who was a surveyor from Kamulikodi Ludigo, Bupadengo, picks me and takes me to St. Kalemba. This is where I come to know Salam Musumba.
Yes.
The uncle was the headmaster of St. Kalemba.
Yes.
And the Salams had been rushed from Namagunga deep into Bugerere, so that the fleeing soldiers of Amin in 79, when I sat for senior four, would not grab them for wives to Sudan.
Yes.
That's where I knew Salam. So I went to St. Kalemba. When I went to St. Kalemba, also I was a character who could not be bullied. I was full of resistance. I remember a girl called Nakamia coming. I was studying my book. I was new, isolated, full of dejection. My physics book then was called by Abbott. The girl came, grabbed my hand. I kept cool. She wrote her name in my hand, brought her arm and said, write your name here. I gave her a slap of the century. Then a crowd came and grabbed me into the headmaster's office. The headmaster nearly caned me into coma. But I stood all of that.
Why did you? This lady was making a move on you. Why did you really?
My dear, I didn't grow up like that. From Kamuri boys to what? Masaba school was a boys' school.
I see.
Those things were not part of me. Even in Makerere, there are things I will not talk on camera. But I left university as a vegetarian.
Serious?
Yeah.
The Basakana,
yes, I can say it, the Basakana, you know. I left Makerere. I had never seen a woman.
Serious?
Yes, it is this Moliro and the mob massification of the military. You know, in the military, when people do something, it is dangerous for you to remain behind. You go into it. That's where I begin messing up myself. You know? So, I'm trying to give you the resistance. Then I came from there. St. Kalemba and came to Soga College for A level. But I was a peasant, the economy had Vurugadas. Deputy headmaster was called Mr. Wabi. He says, why are you taking those potatoes to the dormitory? This is Soga College. I said, Kumbaba. They said, what are you saying? Chintu was the headmaster. He suspended me. They said you will come back for what? For exams. But you know, he was a wise man. Something told me as I studied in my village under a mango tree for a whole year. Me, I never studied senior 16 in school.
Serious?
Yes, I was at home. So, I met an uncle, a brother to Ludigo. He was my headmaster in Wanyang Primary. That is the one who took him to Bishop Willis TTC when those schools were beginning.
Yes.
TTCs.
Yes.
Sunday said, but you see, you are a badly behaved boy. Of course, he was a colonial teacher. I also believed that I was a bad guy to the colonialists. I wasn't good. He said, look here, supposing all your papers are removed by the Muhidi school and thrown in the dustbin, how would you get results? I thought deeply. I went and cut a tree down here. The Mulamoji called the Wachereza taught me how to make a charcoal. He was also a younger man suffering. I made some charcoal, got 30 shillings. Went to Ginger Town Hall and registered. But my uncle told me, no, school environment is important. Wow. Kakunguru was a headmaster at Kakira, but he had been our primary school teacher long ago at Bishop Police demonstration, where he studied the elite after Kamali boys. Yes. But remember how I left the demonstration? Nani's brother, Wandira Kazibwe, he was called Bautu Wandira, came to me. I didn't know Bautu was a secret. When he came that sweeping, I said, why are you caning me? I hit Bautu badly. The man went into coma. They said, he has killed somebody. They said the school should grab me for beating. I fought the school bravely. I never went back. That's how I came to Wanyang. I see. Primary. I said, somebody canes me, you also again want to cane me. Watch a mamba. So I reached a point and the uncle told me, go to Kakira to Kakunguru. Kakunguru gave me a place to study, but this was third term. But I don't know how they used to do it. There were only 4 O-level schools in Busoga. UNEB was very lenient with the registration. A school could write through DO what and they register you late, even without any money. And there was no forgery during those days. So they were not bothered. Right. I again registered in Kakira late. And did my exams at Kakira. Kakira SS. Muhiri waited for me, I didn't go. The late Musumba and the Waigulo came and said, you man, you didn't appear for exams. Everybody was concerned. I said, yeah, my wise man, I've done the exams. Don't worry. Then we met in Makerere. So, Mamadan brings in the fire of the revolutions of the Algeria, the writings of America Cabral, not America Cabral, that was Franz Fanon. Then the struggles of America Cabral in Guinea-Bissau, the struggles of the Nelson Mandelas out there who had already gone to jail. These funny independence struggles, you know, Mamdani would analyze and show us the independence of compromise. People arguing for less, right, from colonialism to neo-colonialism, then why Portugal could not release their colonies. We studied a lot about Agostino Neto. This man who died was who before Samora Machel. There is a Mozambique, Eduardo Mondlane. Right. Then these peasants who are now superpowers, China. By 1947, Chinese had no toilet paper. Those people making the phones. They were short of toilet paper and saucepans. They were using a bibia being a biatos. Yes. So, Mamdan fires up so much. So, one time I even had a small group at Makerere. Ogengo Tunu, I don't know where Jakoro is. He was in the ministry. I don't know where Gidudu is. He joined the police, but he was a very resistant guy. They chased him from Uganda police. He joined some UN police briefly. I don't know where he is. Then Mwenze was a firebrand girl. She lives in Sweden for many years since we came from the bush. Yes. Then to Musima, I don't know where he disappeared. Then there was Dr. Diek and Ian Olwoch. I don't know where they are. There was a small group of boys at the campus. Yes. We always dreamt of taking government and doing good and justice to this country.
That was his government now.
Obote too. So, we even coined the program that what we do, let's join. You know, younger men experiment on every impossibility. Let's join the UNL and make a coup. We even went to the Republic House to meet in a meeting. He was director legal. Yeah. Those actually boys said, they chased us like the flies. Not even Ogengo Tunuzi Luo could save us. We ran away. Wagwabi died. He had become a town clerk in Tororo. He was a Munyole. And when we failed, Wagwabi was is a rare Munyole. We tried to reach the Russian embassy. We even tried to join the Russian army.
Serious?
Yes. See if you can join the Russian army and get back here. We felt they said, no, there is what they call a foreign legion in the British army. What? We tried the British embassy. What? We failed. We even finally said, there is a Laos embassy. We went to the Hungarian embassy in Munyonyo. The ambassador gave us tea and said that he can't help it. At that time, people were flying to Kenya to teach, but my heart remained here.
Oh dear.
A young man called Mukama, he was education second year, came and told me, Huntington, there is a secret. I'm going to bring you the resistance newsletters of Yoweri Museveni. You read, but make sure you read in secret the UPCs. You stay with many UPCs, that's why we feared you.
Yes.
Of course, Batuka was my friend, Otunu was a UPC, and many of those other guys, UPCs, you are vibrant people. I said, I will keep the secret. So I read about the gorilla in the way of which I said, I think let me settle for this. Because I must go to the army.
Yes.
I told the Mukama, I agree. He said, let me bring you two people. He brought me Kayumba and Kabarebe. Those Rwadis who became generals in Rwanda. Kabarebe was an A-level student at Kampala High. But Kayumba was a law student in Lumumba. But the connection of Rwandese around that war was neat. They could afford even to keep picking from secondary schools. Kabarebe was a very thin, shy guy there, and So I worked with them for like a week, struggling to connect to go to the bush. When they couldn't, they still feared me that they talked to Banyankola and other people they thought would join the bush. Never more gereza for a year. He says, the moment I finish, I will go.
Yes.
They disappear.
Yes.
But they said this man is among the UPCs. How does he agree?
Instantly.
Is he a plant? So they feared and consulted Serwanga. There is a Benon Tumukunde who died. They said, but is he still there? They said he's there, but he has given us a warning that he gives us one more chance. When your thing fails, I'm going to Kenya. Of course, the next route was southward, Africa. Then the next route was some destination in Scandinavia, where my cousin Mwenze was, maybe UK. The destination used to be America. So, before he could go away, Mugaba is a doctor, born in Wairaka. I'd given all of my property to Mugaba and the books. We were in Muiri, then Dr. Thien also was in America. He said, you man, the way you look, Mbona you must have been a good psychologist. He came and made a comment when I handed over my property to Mugaba that, my friend Basakana, the way you look, you seem to be going very far. I said, this UPC Mudama, what is he talking about? Anyhow, these people finally came. Mukama came and told me, go, there is a Land Rover there of veterinary. At Micho. Don't look sideways, don't greet anybody, just enter. Later on, I realized there was Dr. Zaramba, there was Dr. Andahiro, there was Dr. Ranyonga, there was Dr. Karemera. They had recruited a horde of Rwandese doctors from Nairobi. But these were Ugandan trained doctors and refugees who grew up where?
Here in Uganda.
I ended up in that bush. We spoke well. We meant well. But like the independence struggles, we have settled for far less than what we settled for, even at independence.
Oh dear. Why is that? What is your biggest frustration?
So, who is Basakana? Briefly, My dad was a focused man with African people wanting freedom, even if he never joined the politics. He had a lot of rows with white people, and each time he just said to help. He never knelt down. I have not been an easy man to kneel down in my life. Even when I came to leave the army, by then I was a commandant of the then School of Political Education in Entebbe, Kitana. Life seemed good. What happened when a younger man of 32, you have a Land Rover Santana which is new, a Land Rover 110, you have 60 boats and 600 nets, you know? Your libido is very high, you are more or less adolescent, you are at the peak of eating life, like they say.
Right.
And my leg had already been what? Injured in Teso. So I could have said, let me stay. But I never lost sight of the feeling that I think the way I saw things moving inside the NRA, I knew we had lied to Ugandans.
What is your biggest, what was the biggest lie?
So I chose to go there.
What was the biggest lie?
No, the entire project was a political fraud.
Serious?
Yeah, the entire project is a political fraud.
Why? Why?
So pick indicators. Did we go to the bush to come and beat people in opposition?
That's one.
Did we go to the bush to come and steal people's money in billions?
That is two.
Did we go to the bush to mind the security of the state and ignore security of the people?
That is three.
Did we go to the bush instead of reworking the education of this country in a better way we used to talk about with a strong degree of indignity? We used to discuss a lot about how Africans can do a lot for themselves. Look at the type of education we have.
On a scale of 1 to 10, how would you grade the performance of the NRA?
You see, in grading the NRM, I'm going to grade them politically.
Yes.
Like they grade people in an election. In an election, there is no number 1, number 2, number 3. There is a winner and failures.
Okay.
We are failures.
Serious?
Yeah. And not because I'm in NRM, I migrated, but historically, I am responsible.
I know.
I contributed to that mess.
Would you,
of growing neocolonialism to more sour levels in this country.
If God gave you an opportunity to reverse, would you think you would never join? Based on what you know now.
If joining what?
If you had an opportunity to rewind the world back in terms of time, would you think you would never join? Would you consider this as...
No. It would not be done if God gave me a chance to rewind things back. At least if God was gracious to rewind things back up to the independence struggles of the early 50s, okay? And I lived in that era with the power, I would have grown a strong state of Ankole, a strong state of Busoga, a strong state of Buganda. I would have done a lot of linkages with the Kikuyu, not Kenya, the Jaluo, not Kenya, and so on, so that we struggle in a true homegrown pan-Africanism of African blocks of indigenous nations to free Africans, one, from foreign criminals.
Do we have...
and then rebuild an Africa which knew the world is a global village and we need to cooperate with others on terms of mutual respect.
Are we, in your opinion, do you think this situation is irretrievable in a sense that we...
No, I've told you it is not irretrievable. It is a tough situation.
Yes.
But with us, we are at it. Not from a parochial political point of view, but from a sociological point of view. We are struggling to do so many things, which I don't care whether it is my grandchildren after 200 years will land on those documents and say, hey, we don't need to reinvent the wheel. Our thinking seems to run on long lines of this literature review. And when they review it, they will find they have somewhere to begin from. Because a world of oppression is not tenable. Even when you go to the Bible, where I've lived as a Christian, when the Jews wanted a king, God asked them a lot of questions.
True.
Why they wanted the king?
He was resistant.
He was resistant.
Yeah.
Because God knew He did not create a person to be oppressed. He created a person with a free will, and he knew the nature of fellow human beings is that they never understood that.
I know.
You get me? They would oppress people.
When you speak like that, Professor Basakana, I am. What you leave us at a loss. What advice would you give
operation,
the young people?
The hegemony. Whether Bush builds a Riviera, he talks of in what? In Palestine. Whether they do what? Not Bush, Trump.
Trump, yes.
Trump should remember he's a Germany. That's what I want to remind that old man.
By descent.
He's a Germany. And no, he's a Germany, not by descent. He's a Germany. There is nothing like American. You know, American is a club of convenience. Like you can say Uganda Law Society. That's what America is. America is not a nation. Even there are no people called Americans. Do you know the origin of the word America? When the Pope, at one time, the major powers of the world was some king of Portugal and Queen Isabel of Spain. And the chief justice of the world was the Pope. So when there was a struggle between Spain and Portugal, during those days of exploration, the Pope divided the world into two. And gave Portugal the east, and gave Spain the west, and said stop struggling. Now, the Portuguese king got his strong man Vasco da Gama to begin on the exploration of the East. That's why you see all of the eastern coasts and the East is Portuguese remnants and of culture and so on.
Right.
Then they gave the West to Spain.
Okay.
And they sent a Spanish sailor, Amerigo Vespucci, who went that way, came back with good news that he had found a new continent. That was America. Now, Okumusima. I think the Balangir of Spain were not selfish like Bungereza. Bungereza, they would have called it the William. Now those would be the Victorians, yes. Not Americans. Yes. But they named it Amerigo.
I see.
When the British overthrew the Industrial Revolution, the hegemon of Spain and what? And Portugal during the feudal days, as the Industrial Revolution brings Britain today, for as Great Britain,
right.
They go and conquer America and subdue those Spanish elements in the men of North and South what? America, right from Canada.
Right.
You get me? And pronunciation. Buganda, Uganda, Uganda. Then somehow Americans, I mean British, and these others, same word, like when you say John, the French say Jean. Then the other say John. The other say the Amerigo.
I see.
The new capital say the American.
I see. So that's how America comes in.
So who are Americans?
Okay.
They are not even related to Amerigo. They are not even related to Amerigo. And where is the origin of Canada? Canada means we are the villagers. Canada simply means we are the what?
The villagers.
Yeah, in the original Indian language of the Red Indians, when the British criminals went to conquer that area, they would ask a lot of questions in their language. You know, when you must speak somebody's language, you talk yours with the signs, but the others kept on saying in resilience of their territory, of these invaders, that because they lived in simple communities of villages.
Right.
So wherever they would reach and say, tell us, which place is this? They say, who are you? This is my village. And in the Indian language of the Red Indian, the word Canada means village.
I see. Wow.
So wherever they reached, smaller chiefs ruled in their villages.
I see.
Wherever they reached, they said, this is Canada. Canada. So they named the country what? Canada. And when you are Canadians, it means you are villagers.
Now, and what's your final word to the youth of today?
The youth of
in
today?
In light of the philosophy of Basakana, but
the first of all,
of Africanism in Uganda.
My word to the youth of today is an apology. You know, every older generation has something to offer to the young generation. They must tell them, this is where we met Busoga. We are leaving it here. The duty you have, if we lived, we would have left Busoga up there. So make sure you leave a Busoga for your children up there, not where you have made it.
Right.
This is in terms of cultural dynamism, science and what? Technology, human rights, relations with other indigenous nations and so on and so forth. We have not done any service to younger people. We have imprisoned them, we have beaten them, we have killed them, we have maimed, we have joined with the stupid Europeans and have taught them only that you can produce children through the anus. You know? We have experimented on them every impossibilities. Everything wrong has happened to our children when we are looking. That a woman can marry a woman and the world goes where? You get me? Human rights, zero. Development, zero. Technology, zero. We have left them in a new slavery. You see them struggling at internal affairs. After wasting years of the energies of their parents in investing in being miseducated, you produce graduates whom no market needs in terms of labor. They go to do anybody's job, you know, in the Arab world, in Europe, and when they reach there, they are treated as you know, Europeans have not left their hopeless thinking that between the animals and the human being is an African. The rough ones will call you an animal. Those who think lenient will say is neither human, you know.
No animal.
No, those animals living in the animal kingdom.
They call us 3/4 of a human being.
Exactly. So you can see, we have our parents gave us a Busoga with a degree of pride. Colonialism notwithstanding and neo-colonialism. They kept on thinking that we would rise to a position of reworking our struggle for the better because they were forced to settle for less at independence. We have worsened the situation. We are people of no values at all. They now know an African is a person who does not live by his word. You are an old man. Today you say when you are 75 you are tired. Tomorrow you say life begins at 70 what? At 75. You get me? You tell the people when you elect the Basoga in an election, you are patriotic. When the Banyankole elect the Munyankole, they are tribalists. You get my point? Yes. So, I am very apologetic to the youth of this country. And I'm apologetic to the youth of this country between 40, 35 and 45. I am triple apologetic. Because we have wasted their entire lives. They have merely existed. They have not lived their lives. By the way, so are the younger men of 20s. The way they have been modeled, they are lost crop.
Now that you have apologized, what is your advice to them?
The only advice I can give is in writing. Those children you see in Pukumanya because those are wasted. We wasted them.
Serious?
As a free shoulder generation. They are gone. They have gone to the graves free of charge.
Serious?
Yeah. All of the treasure and the wealth God put in the brains of those younger people is going down to the cemetery.
Serious?
Yes. What has the country benefited from these younger people? Nothing. They have been given no base, space, and chance to think, innovate, and help to develop their communities. So the children I'm looking at are those in a nursery and the unborn. And the biggest duty we have is to write books for them. So that in the sociological times ahead, because already these younger people here are tired of the situation. They may not be able to do nothing. They are tired, but the tipping point against neo-colonialism is not in their time. That's my thinking.
Do you think there are some people who resonate the way you do? For example, and I'm being specific, the people who you think had the same struggle at a certain time, the likes of Mugisha Muntu, perhaps, the likes of Kiza Besigye, the likes of Kale.
No, I don't know, because everybody I know is very busy struggling to become a neo-colonial agent.
Okay.
So I don't know.
So it is for you independent as well?
I don't know.
I see. So,
right. By the way, we tried to tell a few we trusted to go and begin this philosophy. Forget about all this nonsense. That's why at a given time I told the people to hell with your Kalu. Okay? The election is in this neo-colonial thing. Just fuck off. Go hang. Don't waste our time. God is good. We have been in it. So you can't say, Bobi Abalema. Twabibera muko ne tugwa ne tuyita ne tu. It can't help anybody.
I see.
It's a wrong direction.
I see.
Wrong action, wrong plan, wrong program.
I see.
You know? So
you don't
we tried to take a few.
You don't foresee Basakana ever coming back into the political arena of this country?
The political arena of this country, I will come back into it. I'm already in it, but via revamping the indigenous nation of Busoga.
I see.
And calling upon the people of Rwenzori, of Ankole, of Kikuyu, of the Yoruba, of the Zulu, that the South Africa in which they are in is hopeless. It is only the Zulu nation. It is only the Hosa nation. Okay? It is only the, what is the tribe of that girl? The nationality? Because tribe and Shona.
Yes.
It is only when you come to table as a Shona with Shona values and aspirations of the Shona people. Inform them into the agenda of South Africa if you still need it.
I see.
Okay? And those must be small regional blocks. And if South Africa or Uganda is too small, it is irrelevant. We can even make indigenous nations in a federation in Far East Africa. The Chaga, the Basoga, the what. And Museveni is very busy of late fighting the politics of identity. Because the politics of identity, your identity is with your indigenous nation. And that is very anti-Pan-Africanism. You know?
Yes.
I hear Mr. Museveni is always struggling against politics of identity. Of course, when people talk about politics of identity, others want to use it in a shallow way. Others want to use it in a shallow way. Maybe he's blaming them in their shallow way of looking at a tribe, not as an indigenous nation, but from the camera of the white man, but from the camera of an indigenous Pan-Africanist. Being Ugandan is rubbish and nonsensical. I listen to you when you somewhere when you're what is being Ugandan?
I see.
Okay, what makes you okay? Even if there is a small unity of understanding called Uganda, the first question is, where do you derive your right to be in this unity?
I see.
You somewhere when you're I say, oh,
right.
You know?
Yes.
You somewhere Muganda. I say, hey, tusanyusobala bavakulu. You somewhere Musoga. I say, abakulu tusanga iramwe samya. You say abahongo. You are welcome.
Right.
By this garbage, you get one small tribe of stupid Basoga. Not even the Basoga as a people. A proud people. But stupid neo-colonial elements from one tribe called the Basoga. They all over and you are fooling everybody. Pan-Africans, we are building a nation. Kumbavu, which nation are you building?
There you have it, yourself.
Hey, Garcia Wewe.
On this note, we shall end there, and I'm grateful to have hosted my esteemed senior gentleman here. I call him the philosopher of Busoga. Perhaps one of those thriving philosophers in the Busoga entity as we had it today. The one and only Honorable.
By God, I will tell him to you later.
Yes.
Recently, a friend of mine with whom we discuss issues of the future of Africa talked to one professor in Makerere of political science. I told him you are wasting your time. I listened to that guy long ago in a talk show. Because I compared him to Basomesa Nengamba Banang. Makerere nayo never bajigala. We may not have much to lose.
There you go. Thank you very much and God bless you.